Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 158th episode of Real Hawk Talk. It's an emergency podcast edition of Real Hawk Talk. I'm Brian Nemhauser, at Hawk Blogger on Twitter. Looking forward to talking about an avalanche of good news regarding the Seahawks. And before I do that, let me bring in the crew. First of all, Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11. Let me try that again. Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11 on Twitter. How are you doing tonight, dude?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. And certainly our friend up in Toronto, Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons, smarting a little bit, probably not a lot, from the recent Mariners series victory over the Blue Jays, where Toronto fans were not as able to get over the border as normal. So they did not invade Safeco Field as much as they normally do. But how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I was preparing for a very stressful Seahawks week based on how Sunday night and Monday were looking and after that game Saturday. So today was a stunning turn of events for me. And I'm pretty happy about how things have played out. This is an exciting turn of events.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. In fact, I want to come back to you, Jeff, to share a little bit about the details, because I know you're following it closely. So, but before that, last but not least, Dayna O'Gorman at Dayna OG on Twitter. Super happy to have you join us again. How are you doing, Dayna?
I am good. Thank you. I'm much better today than I was yesterday, right? Because good things happened for Seattle today, and hopefully some of that drama will go away. So yeah, it's good.
Yes, it is good. And folks may not know this about Dayna, but there will potentially be a point later in the year where the Sounders are doing something related to Sporting KC, and things might get a little tense. So just, I don't want anyone to turn on Dayna. I want them to have plenty of prior notice of Dayna's allegiance.
We already played you once and beat you, so that's okay. We can move on from that.
Okay, all right. All right. So Jeff, fill folks in on what happened today and when it happened today.
So let's take a step back. And the story came out last week about what the Seattle offer was. Adam Jude and Bob Condotta were really, really good on this story. They had the exact details. Then leaks started to come out, and I don't know if you guys read Pro Football Talk, but Mike Florio was having a lot of fun creating drama. He admitted that he wants to get every inch out of his story, and he was loving his story, and he was trying to say that Jamal is super difficult. The Jets were laughing, and they know what this is all about, and things were starting to escalate out of control, the franchise tag stuff. So this seemed to be like it was spiraling out of control. He got a leak from Adams' camp that was said they were going to fight for him to play linebacker and get the franchise tag as a linebacker. And then one day later, Adams takes the deal that was offered by Seattle last week, and we talked about on the last week's show. So it's the 4-year deal that was reported in Bob and Adam's story, $70 million total. The guaranteed number was $38 million, and the average per year was 17.5. Which, we said this on last week's show. If you look at what Evan tweeted in late July and what I wrote him right under it, you can see me respond to him right under that. Everyone in the league thought he was going to top out at 17.5. That's exactly the APY he ended up at, 17.5, 4-year deal, 38 guaranteed. So this deal that seemed to be spiraling out of control, according to Mike Florio yesterday, he ends up taking one day later.
Yeah. I think there's a question of whether, what's worse, Mike Florio's reporting or that people still pay attention to. It's not really always just him, or is it just him on Pro Football Talk? Is it always just him?
As a staff, like Curtis Crabtree works for them, and
Curtis is awesome. So
I know that's why it's sort of a weird fit where Curtis is such a straight man and just news and bolts guy, and they have a few people on staff like that, but he loves oozing drama and creating clicks, and it's probably why he's made it to where he is in his career. But people in the NFL do not like him.
Yeah. So Nathan, there's been a lot of sides of Jamal Adams has been a controversial figure since the moment he became a Seahawk, and really before he became a Seahawk. But as of the last few weeks, and really as some of these different stories came out, there were these sects coming out of Seahawks Twitter, and I know you are very familiar with the different sects of Seahawks Twitter, and that's SECT. I was really clear on that.
Different factions of
Seahawks.
Sure, different factions. So there's been these folks that have been almost like reveling in the potential disaster here. I told you, not only was this trade a disaster, but they didn't sign him to an extension, and so he has all the leverage, and he's going to be a diva, and he's never going to sign. He's not going to play the franchise tag, and he's going to want to be a linebacker designation, and it's just never going to happen. And we're going to have given up all these picks. And I mean, there's that group, and then I think there was at least one other group that was kind of like, they're like a few million apart, and this is just going to happen, and not worried about it. On that spectrum, where were you? And how did you feel after you heard the news?
I mean, I didn't think this was inevitable. But I also was in neither of those camps, I guess is the short answer. But I didn't think it was all the doom and gloom that a lot of people were making it out to be, because for two reasons, really. One, Adams holding out of regular season games this year seemed pretty far-fetched. Even if he didn't get a contract, that would have just been such a drastic move, and it would have been expensive for him. He would have eventually had to come back for his service time to accrue there. Otherwise, the contract would have just extended out another year. So, the idea that he was going to do all that didn't make a lot of sense. And, even if he did, he would have at least had to play part of the year, and then they could have franchise tagged him. I mean, he could have made this super ugly, but at no point would that have been good for him. There was no end game in all of that. So I didn't know when this was going to happen, but it just seemed inevitable that he was coming back either with a deal, or he was just going to gamble and try to play it out and see what happens with the tag situation. But this just, there actually wasn't a ton of drama here for me, because I thought it was so unlikely that he actually missed games.
Yeah, I was in a similar boat, Dayna. I mean, the things that would make me nervous in a situation like this is if you've got a player who's actually got a lot of time with the team and had a strained relationship and maybe didn't want to be there. Like in the Jets situation, if he was still with the Jets, I would have been concerned he was just going to hold out and it would be ugly, because he really, really didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. All signs were that, he genuinely really likes being here. He genuinely likes Pete Carroll. He even said that today. And I just didn't see where this was going to end up in this super ugly fight. I mean, they weren't that far off from a money perspective as far as what was being reported. So, yeah, I certainly was not. I was not too worried about this. I do think we owe a bit of thanks to his mom. I don't know. Did you hear Jamal talk about his mother today?
I did. Yes. He said that he got a phone call from his mom, and she used his full name. And he knows when she uses his full name that he needs to pay attention. And she said, sign the deal. You need to be in Seattle. And so I like that his family has that kind of, that they're that close. And he said that he FaceTimed his dad right away because that's his best friend. And that maybe that's what he was wanting when he left the Jets. He was looking for something to be more like a family. And I really feel like he feels like he's found that in Seattle. He loves Seattle. He loves the organization. You can just tell it just kind of oozes from him every time he talks about it. And it's not fake, real happy to be here. Pittsburgh was always a destination, blah, blah, blah crap that you get from people. It really felt more genuine than that. I don't think we were ever in a place where Jamal was not going to play. I do think that quibbling over little bits sounds a little more agenty than player-y to me. Is that what it felt like to you guys too? So yes. I think that it just really felt like he was going to be there, that this is going to happen. I have a feeling Duane Brown's is going to take a little longer. I think they're going to kind of hold on to that for just a little bit, just to not set a precedent, but that's going to get done too. So the off-season drama isn't really drama.
Yeah, we will definitely spend some time talking about Duane, but
Yeah.
we'll revel in the goodness for a little while longer. So,
It's still good.
yeah, so the news broke this afternoon, and this has been something that, as we talked about in the show last week, I think Evan, Jeff, Dayna all felt like this was going to be done potentially by the end of this week. So even maybe ahead of schedule by some of those predictions. And remember, like last week, I asked the question for those that were watching, like, well, why are you guys so sure? Because what's being reported is both sides are super dug in. And, the answer at that time was it's just the money that they're apart is just not big enough to really keep this from happening. And the only real question was, were they going to need some sort of hard deadline to force it to happen, or was Jamal's mom going to call and make it happen? And thankfully, that is what happened. But yeah, I look at this and think the Seahawks have signed what is going to be their best defensive player. He's 24 now. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah. Just.
And has been an All-Pro and multi-time Pro Bowler. And I think that I'm interested in hearing from each of you. How do you feel about Jamal Adams being a Seahawk for the next, what is it now, 4 years, 5 years? Is a 4-year extension on top of the year that he's got left this year. Is that right? Jeff, do you know?
Mm-hmm.
4 new years.
4 new years.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Jamal Adams as a Seahawk, Jeff?
Incredible. To me, this sort of moves the conversation forward to, as you do it, we can kind of stop focusing on his worth. That's done. They got him to a deal that's pretty fair for both sides. And now we can just focus on what he brings to the table as a player. And I think just listening to him today, hearing everything he overcame last year from injuries and not knowing the scheme and being rushed into a situation, he was still a pretty good player. Like, he was not good in coverage. It was his worst year in coverage. But as he gets more comfortable, I think he, as you said, is the best player on their defense. I think he adds an interesting element. Schematically, he added a lot once they stopped blitzing him as much, and they sort of fell into a role with them that matched the bare fronts they were doing. He was more of a versatile weapon. I think having him under contract, I think it moves the conversation. Instead of what was the trade, are you going to sign him? Now we can focus on what he actually brings to the table. And I think he brings a ton of unique skills, and he's 24 years old. He's almost one of their few blue chip players on defense. So I'm pretty excited that he's locked, and we have to stop having this conversation about the trade and whether it was worth it. I think we can kind of change the narrative around him.
Well, we'll see about that, because I'm going to talk to Nathan now. he's 25, by the way, is what I'm hearing.
He's 25 and just about to be 26. He'll be 26 in October.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So Nathan, you are one of a number of folks who've been a vocal critic of the deal, of the trade, I should say, not the contract. How do you feel about the contract now that he's a part of the team?
It's a lot. It's a lot for a safety. I mean, Adams is a good player, and he's shown that he can be a great player. Didn't really show that with Seattle as much as he flashed some strengths and, obviously had a ton of sacks and all that. I mean, it's one of those where, I think you said that he's got Defensive Player of the Year upside. I don't know that that's quite there, but obviously he can be an incredibly good player. He has all of the talent, right? To make, an impact, kind of a Cam Chancellor-esque impact, right? Or we've at least seen how good and impactful, a strong safety can be in this defense. So there's a ton of upside here, but, he really has to nail it to even just break even, right? Especially considering what they traded for him. He's making, and now it's his contract, he's making $2 million more than the next highest paid safety. And that safety signed that deal this year, right? It's not one of those where it was like a 2-year-old deal and it was just a matter of time till the market got reset. They're resetting the market from like 2 months ago. So, just in terms of like value and, all of that, it's hard to see it, right? But at the end of the day, you got a good player. You got someone who could very possibly be the best player on this defense. Very possible to be one of the, best safeties in the NFL, one of the better defenders in the NFL. So, it's one of those where I don't know that this was, the savviest set of moves to acquire him and then, lock him down. But it doesn't have to be that savvy. You got a really good young player. So, it should work out just fine for Seattle at worst.
Yeah, Dana, I mean, the trade is, I think, going to be something that people come back to. And I've seen people and, some folks are feeling happier now. So they're talking about, well, yes, it was 2 firsts, but would I trade LJ Collier and Rashad Penny for Jamal Adams? Yeah, I would. And so I think some people are looking at it a little more positively than they were before. How important is Jamal Adams to this defense? How important is Jamal Adams to the Seahawks' chances this year?
Well, I think you just have to look at the stats, and I don't have them directly in front of me. Maybe one of you can look them up. But with him on the field and without him on the field, it was a market difference, right? I mean, it was quite you can shake your head no, but it's not true, Nathan. They were better with Jamal Adams on the field.
Not like $15 million more.
Okay, so you don't think that he should be the highest paid safety because it's $2 million extra is what I'm getting here. But maybe we need to pay that $2 million extra because he's not always a safety. And that was kind of his point for a long time, right? I looked it up. He has 78 total pressures since 2017, and that's 31 more than any other DB, right? So it's a difference. I remember I was getting a lot of guff one day in our group chat about this before there was the contract today, and Evan asked me flat out, he goes, Dana, what would you be okay with? What would you be happy with? And I said anything under 20. I didn't want him to hit that 20 mark, but I would have been okay with 19 or 18. And it's because of his age. It's because of what he does while he's on the field and the fact that he's already been all pro. There is a level here of Jamal Adams that I don't think we saw last year due to injury or whatever it may be. But at the same time, it's not just that. And this is what it is for me, you guys. And it might not be a stat you can put on a paper somewhere, but Seattle needed some swag back. They needed some of that attitude back. They needed some of that. Everything that they hated about him in the Jets is exactly what Seattle loves. And that's what we needed. So yeah, maybe we're, not thrilled about the extra $2 million, but you know what? I'm thrilled about the extra $2 million, and I'm so glad he's on the team.
Yeah, the money part, I'm struggling to lose any sleep over. He's going to be your best defensive player, and I think is a top 10 defender in the league potentially, and sometimes even higher than that. And he's young and multifaceted, and I think the Seahawks. This is going to be probably my hottest take, I guess, but I think the Seahawks might have bought low on him. Last year was not his best year. And he had 9.5 sacks, which is a flashy number, but he was used really in a pretty specialized way. There was a lot of blitzing. He got the nickname Blitz Boy from at least some folks, and that got back to him. He was burned in coverage a number of times. People say he's not a good coverage player. And I mean, if you look back, that isn't necessarily, that doesn't seem to hold up. I tweeted about this earlier. The year before he was a Seahawk, he was the 7th best cover player from a safety position in the NFL. Better than guys like Honey Badger, better than guys like, Micah Hyde and, Quandre Diggs and folks of that nature, Minka Fitzpatrick. So he's been there. And the year before that, he was ranked 3rd in coverage at the safety spot. So I don't know. This is a guy that for me can be a very good cover player. He is a fantastic pass rusher. We know that. He's a great run defender, which I know Nathan appreciates. I know that's part of what he values the most here, but he's a great tackler, which has been a challenge for the Seahawks and is certainly important for some of the guys that have been getting through the line. And I think he's a great leader. And I think he brings the swag that Dana's talking about. I think he's everything you want in a defensive player and a blue chip player. And they paid him essentially like the same APY as Bobby Wagner, who's over 30 and in a few years, we're going to look back and say, oh my God, our best defensive player is probably at a pretty affordable contract. I think relative to where the rest of the things are going with the league. The only other thing I'll say there really quickly, I mentioned this on Twitter as well. I don't know if people heard this from Ken Norton. I think it was last week, but he was talking about Jamal Adams, and he specifically said he was used in that specialized way in part because they didn't have preseason last year. They didn't have a chance to indoctrinate him in the defense as much. They wanted to simplify things, and that they're not going to blitz him as much this year. He said that. Whether that's true, maybe he's lying, but I didn't think there was a reason for him to. And that he's going to be playing more coverage and doing other things. So we haven't seen Jamal Adams play in front of a crowd at Lumen Field. I just think that there's a ton of upside. And I have a feeling Seahawks fans are going to look at Jamal Adams in this deal in not very long and be like, holy hell, thank God the Seahawks got this guy. That's my belief. And I hope that he's lighting a lot of cigars in the future. So, anything else on Jamal before we move on to some of the other good news that's come out today?
So I do have his stats, the on-off last year for Seattle with Jamal Adams. So you asked for him, Dayna. So
I appreciate the fact that you did it. Thank you.
Okay, so with him on the field, they had a completion percentage. Opponents had a completion percentage of 65.5%. With him off, 69.5%. So it's a 4% completion percentage difference. QB rating was a 3.8 difference, went from 89 with him on to 92.8 with him off. And QBR was about the same, a difference of 60.1 to 63. And this is the difference between Jamal Adams and Ryan Neal. So, yes, they were better with him on the field.
You can stop there. They were better with him on the field. There you go.
They're paying a lot of money for a pretty, marginal difference last year.
From last year.
Brian, that was a pretty broken version of him.
It was.
Right.
I mean, we don't know that, though. I mean,
we do know
we
that.
do know how injured he was.
Surgeries.
Sure.
Like 3 surgeries.
That means he can't run with Julian Edelman? Is that this dude's been in the league for 4 years. He's had very good PFF coverage grades in 2. He's had bad PFF coverage grades in 2. Shaquille Griffin was the second-rated corner by PFF a couple years ago, and no one's crying that he's left. So I'm not going to bet against him. I see all the upside. I see all the mitigating things with last year. This just isn't quite the surefire thing I think a lot of people are making it out to be. I don't know that he's quite the locked in blue chip, expect all pros from him every year going forward.
All right. You're hedging too much. I want a take. I mean, let's get this on the table. Is Jamal Adams going to be an all pro this year?
No.
Dayna?
This year. Oh, I hate to say may. I'm going to say yes, because that's my job to be positive on this show. But it's a little bit of a maybe yes for me.
No, you got to take one or the other. So I'm going.
Yes, I already said yes.
Yes, Jeff.
I'll say no.
Okay, yeah, he's definitely going to be an all pro this year.
But how does he get there, Brian? Is what I'm curious. What does he do this year that makes you think he's an all pro compared to last year?
I mean, look, I think Jamal Adams is going to have more than 100 tackles. I think he's going to have more than 5 sacks. I think he's going to have, probably more than 8 tackles for loss, beyond the sacks. And then I think there'll be turnovers that he creates. I just really, really, really believe that a lot of what we saw from Jamal Adams last year was his worst. I think the first game of the season against Atlanta, I honestly, in all the years I've watched football, there's been only a handful of games where I've seen a safety or any player be involved in as many plays at as many levels, as many sides of the field as he was. He was everywhere.
So Jamal was second team all pro last year, and we didn't even think he played well.
Yeah, I know. That's part. I mean, I think part of what that comes from is the sacks. I mean, he said
I don't think he should.
Sure.
I don't think he should have been second team All Pro, to be honest.
I agree. I don't either.
But here's a stat that helps Dayna. Pro Football Focus tweeted this out today. EPA per play. I know everyone loves that stat. The Seattle defense was 20th without Jamal Adams and 9th with him. That's a pretty significant jump.
Oh, that hits Nathan right where it hurts. He's an EPA lover. How does that feel, Nathan? Does that hurt?
I mean, it's how in the world could they have gotten so much better when he played a lot against the Colt McCoys and
see now he's equivocating, Dayna. He's backed into a corner. The EPA jab, the uppercut. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's gonna be really
in my opinion, it's a good place to spend the money. I with the cap next year, especially, I'm just not worried about the money. I'm just not.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Nathan, I'm chastening you because it's good for us to not all feel the same way. It'd be really boring to hear. So, what is there something that Jamal Adams could do, whether it's statistically or some achievement that for you would say, okay, yeah, this was actually he's earned that money, and the Seahawks are definitely smart to have paid him that money. What would he have to do to earn that?
Oh, he just has to recover some of that. He has to be the cover guy we thought he was going to be, right? That's really it. And if he is the same guy as he was last year, if that's just who he is, right? Or if he's only slightly better than that, this isn't like a disaster, right? Like last year's version of Jamal Adams was a good player. Mm-hmm. It's really just a question of, they have absolutely broken the bank in trading for him and then now in paying him. And so the question is he worth that, right? Is he going to live up to that? Is he going to, and that I don't know. I don't know that he's really going to justify everything that they've done to get him here and keep him here. But he's a good player. Like, there's no doubt that like they didn't like just think this on, I don't know, this isn't Kerry Williams all over again or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking up really quickly. Like, I don't know that Cam Chancellor is really the best compare in my mind, but
they're different players. I'm just talking about the value that this defense can get out of a good or an elite strong safety, right? They'll do it in different ways, but I think it's clear, this isn't like a low value, like why are you paying us a box safety, right? No, we've seen a box safety in this defense make a huge impact.
Exactly. Yeah. I look at some of just really quickly, Jamal Adams, PFF grades, and PFF grades are obviously we talk about because they're easy to access and there's lots of ways to judge players, but I mean, he just fills up the book. I mean, his second year in the league, his overall rating was 89.8. And again, 90 and above is essentially all pro, best of the best in the league. His run defense was 78, which 80 and above is essentially Pro Bowl level. His tackling was 79. His pass rush was 90. His coverage was 89.6. It was 90. His third year in the league, his overall grade was 87.9. His run defense was 78 again. His tackling was 90. His pass rush was 90. His coverage was 88. Like, there aren't many players that can do all of the things that Jamal Adams can do, and to be doing them at the age that he's doing it at. So I'm certainly really bullish. And the last thing I'll just say about the Adams piece is I think he could have made this ugly. And I'm pretty encouraged that there are some signs of being a team player in this. I know that people are probably going to laugh at that, but reports that he didn't try to push past Bobby's number from a contract perspective. He did come to camp. Now, I know that there's a lot of financial reasons now. For people that don't know, you used to be able to get fined for missing camp, and then the team could forgive those fines when you signed your deal. The new CBA doesn't allow that. So if you do stay out, you're going to be fined and you won't get that money back. I'm sure there's ways around that, by the way. I'm sure they could just pay them more, but whatever. So I don't know. I, as a fan, appreciated the way Jamal Adams went about this, relative to how it could have been. I don't know. Is that too crazy, Dayna or Jeff?
No, I mean, that's the fan way of thinking of it, right? You want someone from a fan's point of view. You want someone who's going to try and make your team better, not just for his own gain. Do you know what I mean? And that's kind of the feel that you get from Jamal.
Yeah, there were certain members of our show and people we followed that were pushing that the holdout was going to get ugly. I remember in mid-July, people were saying only 2 weeks till this Jamal Adams holdout gets ugly and all this stuff. I definitely noticed with you, Brian. I think I mentioned on past show how different the noise around him was compared to last year with the Jets. And it was dead quiet. I think a lot of people in the media overplayed his leverage because of what Laramie Tunsil and Jalen Ramsey did. And I always thought that he was going to be held back by this position. And it turned out that's what happened. The safety market limited his ceiling because he's a safety. And I use that Travis Kelce example all the time. And at the end of the day, like you said, there really wasn't much noise. And when he talked today, a lot of the stuff you sort of implicated there, Brian, he sort of said himself that he wanted to be here. He never thought about skipping games. Like he thought that was crazy. And he was on good terms. And really, it could have got ugly. Like if it seemed like it was starting to spiral out of control yesterday, but those were just leaks to get the deal done. And really, like, he's grateful to be here. And there was almost no buzz coming out of him. Everything really came from the team side. So I think that is impactful. You can see Bobby is tweeting about it right now. And I think there's certain guys they've paid. Like, remember what happened when Percy got paid? Like, Golden and Doug want to fight him. And they were pissed off that he got paid before them. So I think it's pretty telling to see the reaction from all the guys on the team compared to what has happened with certain contracts in the past.
Yeah. And a good time to remember, to remind folks, if you haven't already, click the like button, please. Takes only a second, helps people find out about the show, builds the community. Click subscribe, click the little bell to get notified when we go live, because, hey, there could be news tomorrow, the next day. You never know with the Seahawks, and we will go live and have our emergency pods as soon as there's news to talk about. So now's a great time to do that. And of course, always join at patreon.com/hawkblogger. We donate all profits to charity, and a lot of great work going on there. You get access to our Slack channel right away when you join. So would love to have you join the community. There was one other thing that was on my mind about Jamal Adams, and it's small, stupid, but to your point, Jeff, I would bet that his agent was super annoyed with him, because he at no time seemed disgruntled or like willing to, like, even though that was what the reports were, he just sounded like Seattle's where he wanted to be. He was going to make it happen, and that does not make the job easier for the agent. So I like I like players like that, players that are so good they're going to get paid anyway, but really are there for the team. So all right, now I want to give you guys a little choose your own adventure. We could spend a few minutes talking about the game on Sunday, because we haven't actually, or Saturday, because we didn't actually talk about what we saw other than Jeff and I. So we could do that, or we could talk about the other guys that we got news on today that were back at practice. Nathan, I'm going to let you choose.
Let's talk about the guys that are back at practice.
All right.
Way more positive than the game.
I thought so. So the first has to be talking about, now, are we calling him D. Eskridge or Duane Eskridge? I'm seeing both. Does anyone know this?
I think it's up to you.
I've seen
you choose your own adventure.
Okay. So Nathan, the lover of receivers of this group by far. What's your take on Mr. Eskridge, our top pick, one of three, passing his physical and getting it back on the field today off of PUP officially?
I mean, it's great. I mean, we have no idea if this guy is good. We have no idea how much this injury is going to have set him back in terms of what he can contribute this year. It still may be a rough few weeks for him, and maybe, a rough part of the season. But just the fact that he was able to get cleared, get back on the field, we don't have to worry about a Philip Dorsett situation. Like, that's all just huge, because even though the reports have been getting more and more positive, right? I think the fact that he was on PUP and that it looked bad at all was a surprise. And you just never know with injuries. This one seemed to be lingering. So at that point, it just feels like it could go any direction. And now I think that he's back on the field, that they got him back out there in training camp, right? They're like, they could have been cautious still or something like that, but they're having him run, they're having him work, probably see him in a preseason game. It's just all positive in terms of what kind of tea leaves you're trying to read about his foot and his health.
Yeah. Jeff, did you by any chance see any of the footage of our top pick on the field today?
Yeah, I didn't glean much from it, but he was there. He was running a little bit.
Let me help you, dude. I'm gonna get out over my skis because I've been more negative about the pick, not Eskridge himself, but the pick, than anybody, I would think. And this is the smallest clip and the stupidest clip, but he was just literally running a route and getting in and out of a break. And the way he moved in getting into and out of that break was different than any of the other receivers that are vying for that third position. Like,
are you sold now?
Oh, I'm not sold on anything. I mean, I liked what I saw of Eskridge. I think he can be a really good fit for this offense. I've never been down on Eskridge as a player, other than when we started hearing about the injury. And I got to admit, I am not at all confident that he's going to stay healthy. Like, a toe injury that has been healed by something they've done to his shoe that they had multiple opinions on and found out that surgery wouldn't help, which means that it was bad enough that they thought surgery might be needed. Like, all signs of this to me are do not count on Mr. Eskridge being there all year. But I liked what I saw, and gosh, I'm desperate to see something I like after the first two receivers on this roster, because I think that position group is awful. I think it's awful. So, if Eskridge can come in there and be a difference maker and have a little bit more, breakaway potential and a little bit more separation potential and a little bit more speed, amen. Like, it's huge. It's a really, really big deal, because we are crawling through the desert, Dayna, looking for a thimble of liquid, hopefully water to drink there. So, I mean, what do you have a take on Eskridge? Either what you've seen today or what you've seen in the past, and how big of a deal do you think it is, whether he's good or not good, for the Seahawks?
Me or Jeff? Me?
You, Dayna.
Me. Okay. Well, I did see the clip today with his little tappy
You saw
feet,
it.
and I did. And Sam and in the Patreon chat, Sam Brown posted it and said, and I said, I think he's testing his feet, because the way he was tapping, he was on his tiptoes. And so I was almost thinking it was like, can I do, it's like, okay, that's good. Okay. You know what I mean? It felt, because that's not the way he runs. I don't think that's the way he runs.
Did you see Nathan's tweet? Nathan's tweet was great.
I missed it.
different play. It was a different play.
It was a different play.
I'll have to look it up. But
Somehow
anyway,
I wasn't following Nathan. I don't know if Twitter unfollowed you. Does that ever happen? But I was like, why am I not following Nathan?
Do you remember when I blocked you jokingly and then I got locked out of the DMs? And then I think you never followed me back. Yeah.
Got it. That makes more sense, because I was like, I'm not that vindictive. I mean, we argue a lot, but I wouldn't unfollow you, for God's sake. Yeah.
My question is, are you willing, if you like what you see, Brian, out of Eskridge over the next two preseason games, and you're like, yep, he's fitting in, are you still pounding the drum for Golden Tate? Or would you be okay with going with Eskridge? Because today, it cracked me up. There was a report, Golden Tate linked to Seattle, the Giants, and the Lions. Every single video he posted on Instagram, which cracked me up. So he's linked to those teams because he posted them on Instagram. But anyway, go ahead.
Also,
I've been doing my own research on that topic, and I'm not sure that he's linked to the Seahawks. So
No,
we'll
I
see.
don't think so either.
But it's tough, Dayna. The injury thing is real for me. So let's say Eskridge looks fantastic, but he's got a glass toe that could go. And then we're right back where we started. The problem is if Eskridge really is going to be your number 3 and he's just clearly that guy, there isn't a role for Tate. You're not going to sign him just to sit there on the sidelines. Like he's a guy you'd sign to play. So I don't think it makes sense to sign him if Eskridge is going to be ready to go and is looking really good, is my straight answer. And no one else has signed him yet, Golden Tate. So, who's to say there won't be something that comes, after week 1 when veteran contracts aren't guaranteed. I'm also really interested to see, like it just occurred to me today, Schneider always makes trades at the end of, when they finalizing the 53-man roster. There's going to be receivers that come free at that time. There's going to be cornerbacks that come free at that time. Schneider's made deals for multiple corners at that time of year, and some of them have turned out to be pretty darn good. So I don't know. Generally, those are slot corners, which I do think are valued differently. I don't know if you're going to get a starting quality edge corner when you're cutting down a 53-man roster, but I don't know. That's kind of a longer answer than you asked for. But
no, it's exactly what I meant, because I think that we should know pretty quickly. I would hope anyway. If they play him, and I'm a little worried that they won't play him, but if they play him in the next couple of preseason games and we're not very impressed, I'm a little worried at what they'll do at your point. But again, that after the first week of that contract, that could make all the difference in the world. So we'll kind of see there. But I think if he's good at all, they're going to be like, see, we didn't screw up this pick. And so then they'll run with him at that point.
Do Jeff or Nathan, do either of you have like a feeling for what the upside is for Eskridge in this offense? Like, what would be a good year for him? Do you have a feel for that yet? Whether or not you know what kind of player he's going to be, but like the player in that role, what could he be?
I don't know statistically because I don't really know what the new offense is. But from my understanding, the reason they targeted him specifically is they felt they needed something to complement what their other guys had. And they needed someone who was more of a horizontal yards after catch player out of the receiver role. And I think that will not only be good for him, but it'll open up things for everything else. And we've touched on this a million times, what happened at the end of last season, where they were just out of options. And so I think a legitimate horizontal short yardage, they talk about all these quick, and I think having a guy, and I know one of the guys, I don't think he'll ever top this kind of skill set. Brandon Cooks was a first-round pick, traded for multiple first-round picks. But I think they envision him in a similar skill set role to what Cooks did with the Rams and how he was able to open up things for everything else in that offense. And when they sort of lost that element, the offense sort of shuttered and became their like average depth of target completely shot without that guy who sort of opened up everything for everyone else. So I think that's what he can bring that Hart or Swing can't, is that ability to just be a game breaker with his speed, like how he can get in and out of breaks, and how you can just get the ball to him quickly. Because really, Petty Hart at his best is like what we think Eskridge is, but a light version of that. And Swain is more of a precise, low upside route runner.
Yeah, Nathan, I mean, I think I haven't really decided what I want from him yet. Like I guess I don't believe that the third receiver is going to get a high volume of targets. So I'm not looking for like lots of yards and lots of catches, but it's kind of to Jeff's point. I would be looking for big plays. Like, is this a guy that can average, some amount of yards after catch or some amount of yards per catch? And maybe is a guy that can get you 3 to 6 touchdowns off of big plays. Does that sound right to you, or do you have something else in mind for what Eskridge could be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ideal, right? Is finding ways for him to be explosive. And I think Jeff's probably right that they're going to try to do it horizontally, but that wasn't how he was used at Western Michigan. He was a vertical threat, and which makes sense with his speed and everything. So it's going to be interesting because I think he has the skill set to do a lot of things and to play off of both Tyler and DK, and to not be too predictable, because I think he can make plays with the ball in his hand, going side to side, and obviously I think he can beat you over the top if you're not paying attention. I don't know that he has quite the skill set to go up and get a ball like Tyler does, despite his size. And into rounds, right? I mean, you could literally see him doing any number of things. As a rookie who's already missed part of training camp, they're going to have to limit it probably. And I would think that they would probably focus more on some of the horizontal stuff because they already have such strength at the vertical passing game. But, it's just we're going to have to wait and see.
Someone just put in chat, Jason Long just put in chat, 51 catches, 770 yards, and 8 TDs. I don't think any of those numbers are possible.
No.
For the third receiver. I just don't. I think you're going to have DK Metcalf getting a shit ton of targets, and as well he should. And then Tyler Lockett getting a bunch. And you got Gerald Everett, who's going to get a bunch.
Potentially,
I just don't.
Potentially Parkinson. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just hard. I mean, I think folks should brace themselves for him potentially having like 20s of catches. Like, I don't think that would be unrealistic for him to be in that range. That wouldn't be a bad thing necessarily if he's contributing in some of the ways that we've talked about.
So he was special team player of the year, right? And we were talking, I think, last week about who he thinks going to return. Maybe that's a role for him. I'm not sure, where he could pick that up a little bit. If he was already, he was player of the year, for God's sake. So, and granted it was the Mac, but still,
no,
so maybe that's his where he gets some of his, but I think that you guys are absolutely right. We have no idea how they're going to use him in this Waldron, offense, because we have no idea what this offense is. And that game last Saturday gave us no clue what the hell this offense is going to be. Not a clue.
That was so brutal. Dayna, how much of that game did you watch? Be honest.
Well, I was flipping back and forth between that and the soccer match. I'm not gonna lie, but I probably watched a good 3/4 of it. I didn't watch the fourth quarter.
Okay.
And it was painful. It was painful because we all knew Geno Smith was concussed. It was painful for a lot of reasons. It was painful. Can
we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
I mean,
that was bad, you guys.
Why is that not
bad.
like a bigger story? Like,
yeah.
Was there anybody that, like, when he's lying around after he gets, by the way, which should have been like roughing the passer, right? Didn't the guy launch himself into his head and neck area?
He had a full hold of his helmet.
And then he knocked that helmet into the other guy's helmet. Like, that was about as bad as you're getting, like, not as bad as you're gonna get, but it was pretty bad. And then Geno Smith was literally rolling around on the ground, holding his head. How did he ever get back in the game? And not just for like a play, but like for like a quarter or something. What the hell? Like,
I have no idea.
There were some folks on Twitter that I respect. I respect. And they were saying, or this was one person, I think it was Andre. Saying that sometimes concussion symptoms can be exacerbated by physical exertion. So it's possible they got him into the test, or into the tent. He passed his tests, and then he got out there and started running around and felt worse. I think that's very generous because, like you said, Brian, he was holding his head, which he was either holding his head because he got rocked in his head, or it almost looked like he had the concussion arms, right? Where you see the arms lock like that. And it wasn't just that he went back out and finished that series and he went out and played another. So I find that to be very generous. I don't think I'd buy it. But that is possible, I suppose.
Well, and Jeff, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Everyone's like, well, at least a lot of us are like, whoa, the Seahawks the staff blew that. But isn't there an independent doctor that's always monitoring the game for the NFL and is also responsible for whether a player can go back in a game?
Maybe the doctor was at the casino in Vegas or something. Because we were on the show and we're like, how is he going back in the game? How is he going back in the game? Hey, what the hell do we know about this? But they couldn't seem to figure this out.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it was mind-boggling. It was the most obvious. Like, this guy got knocked out. He got hit in the head. He couldn't move. And it was embarrassing. Like, it was embarrassing they trotted him back out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a shame. And obviously you never want to see anyone get hurt and never want to see someone playing when they could get more hurt. And then on top of that, I don't think any of us wanted to see him play anyway. Like, just leave him off the field. He was awful, like before he got hurt. So I am never want to like kick a guy while he's concussed, but I don't want Geno Smith to be the backup quarterback. Like, I'm done with that guy. Like, Nathan jokes about Mr. Magoo, but I would much rather have him as your backup right now.
He's electric, man. He just makes stuff happen.
He and Jamal could have a thigh off, dude. Those guys have some.
It's true.
They do not skip a leg day.
Can we talk a minute about what a terrible day Wyman had? Like, I know that he's like, this is the Seahawks crew, right? They have their own, because they have Menifee come in and all that. And so I get that he's like on the payroll and everything, but he spent the first, like, he introduced Geno as like, oh, I just think this is one of the best backups in the whole league. Like, he's just so good. They're so lucky to have him. And he's playing like ass. And then he gets obviously concussed, and they finally take him out, and Wyman's like, oh, they're just a great job by the Seahawks medical staff. You know, they're right on top of that. So wonderful. You know, they'll take care of him. Like, Wyman, you gotta calm down, dude. Like,
man. Someone has labeled us now as real thigh talk. So we're gonna have to be careful.
Look, before we leave the quarterback conversation, though, because I do cover all four teams, I retweeted today that the San Francisco 49ers let Josh Rosen go, and you'd be amazed how many people are like, Seahawks, he needs to come to the Seahawks. I was like, Josh Rosen? Okay.
He's awful.
I thought it was hilarious, but no, the Seahawks don't need Josh Rosen.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people in the media and even Seahawks Twitter who rewatched that game for further analysis. All of you deserve some sort of medal or an award. I've watched a lot of preseason football, like too much for any sane person. A lot of Seahawks preseason football. And I think Derek said in our chat, that was just the least interesting game I've almost ever seen. So anyone who took the time to rewatch that, you're either paid by someone or you're out of your fucking minds, because that was, you know, the thing in Men in Black where like they shoot it and you lose your short-term memory. Like, I wanted that badly.
Yeah, it was really.
Well, the fans were even leaving by the fourth quarter. The place is half empty. Everyone's in the bars in Vegas, which is going to be a reoccurring theme there. Just so you know.
I think it's generous to call it boring, because it wasn't boring. It was actually like excruciating. Like, boring is somewhat neutral, like nothing's happening of interest, but it was actively like bad things were happening, and it was just like, it was like Clockwork Orange. Like, you had your eyes held open while horrible things are being, you know, shown across the screen. It was,
that might be a little extreme, Brian.
you know, you got to paint a picture, you got to evoke an image here, Dayna. But I mean, Dom Wood Anderson is somehow still on the roster. The guy who got like a 20.
How did that happen?
Oh my God. Well, because they don't have any tight ends, which brings me to one of the other pieces of good news. Colby Parkinson maybe back in a few weeks. A couple of weeks were the word. So you figure that in Pete's terms, that means like a month, right? Like, we should brace ourselves for that. But it sounds like pretty darn good news. I mean, did you guys get any more details? I haven't had a chance to listen to the press conference. Jeff, Dayna, Nathan, anybody?
I did not listen to the press conference.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it either. The quotes I saw, though, were just, we were worried it was going to be bad. It does not seem to be bad. It might just be a couple weeks.
I think that's a pretty big deal. One person we have not heard about is Ethan Posick, right? I don't think we've heard anything. Is that anyone?
Let me look. I don't think we heard anything this week.
To me, that's maybe, other than corner, the biggest concern on the team right now, because Kyle Fuller looked god awful.
Do you want to know what Kyle Fuller's pass block grade was?
He was horrible in that game.
I want to hear a guess from at least a couple of you. Like understand that like 60 is like a rotational player, 50 is like, a backup,
69.
69. That's a good guess. Nathan, dirty dog. Anybody else?
I'll say 47.
47.
52.
Try 15.8. That was his pass block grade. 15.8. This is the guy that we won in the competition with Ethan Posick. And this is like the Raiders backups.
I was very alarmed.
I mean,
I'm not seeing anything else on Ethan. That's
if you want
just
some
sad.
potential good news there, I don't know that there's any reason you should think too much about it. Brad Lundblade played center for the Seahawks and was the top-rated offensive player for the Seahawks with an
that good news?
83.3 grade.
What was it?
Brad Lundblade.
No, what was the grade?
83.3.
Oh,
and he
okay.
played 33 snaps. So it wasn't one of those like he played like 5 snaps. So I don't know. Maybe Brad Lundblade is the Jonathan Bullard of this year, who we just like get hopeful about because God knows the center position was bad.
Maybe they can trade for that position.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, you need someone who can I don't think you can just flop a center in at the end. Like they need to know the line calls, the protections. Like they have to have chemistry with Russ on the snaps. Like I think honestly, it's a pretty big concern that they don't have whoever's going to be their center snapping for Russell right now.
But
Are we starting to regret? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dana.
I was gonna say, are we starting to regret the Justin Britt situation?
No.
No. Okay. I mean, it's a fair question.
It is a totally fair question. I think Ethan Posick is just
It's better than Britt, yeah.
I don't really.
Well, he's not his butt isn't on the field, isn't it?
That's true. And Britt would fit in with the thigh guys pretty well. That guy was a unit.
Oh, stop. Don't encourage that.
But I don't think center is even the biggest question mark on the line right now.
No. Corner.
No, on the line.
On the line. Where do you think is the biggest line?
Duane Brown.
You'll be done.
I don't know that it will. I don't know if you're sourced up on this one or something, but much more skeptical about where this is going than I was about Adams. Adams was going to play, no doubt. Like everything there just pointed to Seattle having the upper hand, and the contract that they had offered him, the rumors around that, like it was just too good for that to not work out. But I don't know that they're going to try to do anything with Brown before the season starts. And he's at a point in his career where you just don't know what he might try to do, right? I mean, he might be feeling desperate enough to really push it and maybe sacrifice some games or something.
So here's my I don't have a source on this other than just some things that I've read and a few reports, things that and I think I said this last week too, not signing Duane Brown flies in the face of everything they were dealing with Russell Wilson in the offseason. And Russell Wilson put his foot down and he's like, Duane Brown will be on this team and he's going to play every game, and then offered to change his contract, which we all know Seattle doesn't want to do, pushes money down. Like we get all that, right? But I can't imagine after making that declaration that the Seahawks, after dealing with the crap they dealt with him in the offseason, would turn around and go, yeah, but we don't care about your line right now, or whatever it is, or we don't want it to set a precedent. I don't think that they'll do that just because right now they seem to be on good footing with Russell. And so it would be kind of, and I know that you guys don't really think this matters, but to a certain extent it does, it would be a PR nightmare at that point because the media would latch onto that in a minute.
I think that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. And I actually don't think it matters because it's a PR nightmare. I think exactly what you said is right. That would be an amazing way to immediately burn any bridges or any rebuilding that you've done with Russ. So maybe that is the thing that tips it in the favor of getting done.
But I agree with you, Nathan, though. I think there's real challenges there. I think basically agree with everything you said. And I don't know if you guys heard this, but John Schneider was interviewed before the debacle on Saturday, and he made mention of, we have 21 guys whose contracts are up after this season. And the implication there was, if we sign one of these guys, there's going to be a bunch of these other guys that are going to come to the door. Quandre Diggs, for example, could be the next guy that comes and says, hey, you paid this guy, you paid that guy, why not me? So it's a delicate thing. It's not easy for the front office. I know we all focus on one name, but they've got the whole roster and the whole cap that they've got to manage. And there is some indication that the Seahawks are just going to wait this out. And unlike the Jamal situation, Duane might just be like, yeah, I'm not 25. I'll just sit out. That's possible. I hope that's not true, but I think we have to hold our breaths on the Duane Brown situation. I'm not convinced he's going to show up and play. I think he will, but I don't. Let's put it this way. I want to, for each of you, do you think it is more likely, let me think how I want to phrase this. Do you think it is more likely that the Seahawks will sign Duane Brown to an extension, or that Duane Brown will play without an extension? And Jeff, I'll start with you.
I'm very uncomfortable with everything that's coming out of this situation right now. I heard what John Schneider said, and I don't agree with it at all. I think that everyone would understand why this is an exception to all those other players, especially with what Dayna said, the context of it, and that he's the left tackle, maybe the third most valuable position on the team. So I do think, based on what I'm hearing, that they don't seem interested in doing it until the end of the season. So I think it's more likely that he plays without an extension. And the whole thing is starting to make me nervous.
Dayna, you have a prediction which will be more likely?
I think he'll play, with the caveat of, I think that they'll do something to appease him for the season, whether that be change his bonus structure, change his, all of that, why am I blanking on it? When, what do they call it? When,
Guarantees?
No, not the guarantees. More like, when they give I'm literally, and this is my third podcast today. So you've incentives. My brain is just gone. So incentives, they'll give him some way that he can make extra money this season to make it worth his while to show up. And then hopefully come November, they'll announce a new deal with him. Do you know what I mean? And so maybe, I think he would play. Now, if they do nothing and they just ignore him, I don't know that he would play, because he doesn't have necessarily the reason to. But I don't think they'll let that happen. I think they'll figure out a way to make him happy enough this season and then deal with the contract during the season.
I don't know. Yeah, Nathan, I feel like it's 51-49 in my opinion, that like slightly more likely that they sign him to an extension than that he plays without a contract, a new contract. But I don't know, man. Where are you on this?
So, one thing to clarify, he absolutely will play this year. Zero, like he has to. A player can't hold out for an entire season because then their contract doesn't accrue or whatever it's called. Toll, yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I think it's like 6 or 7 games that you can hold out before that you cross that threshold. So that said, do I think that he will do I think he'll miss? That's the question, is he going to miss regular season games, I think. And, for a minute, you really sold me, Dayna, on the Russ thing and the pressure that puts on the Seahawks. But that's actually just leverage for Duane. And so you talk about the PR nightmare, you talk about what that means with Russ. If he just misses 1 week, if he misses week 1 against the Colts, it's gonna be fucking insane if that happens. Like you talk about Florio stirring shit with Adams, man. We're gonna hear a million Russell Wilson to the Giants trade rumors, and all that stuff is gonna come right back. So,
and that's why I think Seattle won't do it. I think that's why Seattle will do it. They will give him the
Man, John is stubborn.
Stubborn as hell, yes. But he can't screw with this. Do you know what I mean? It's different. And you're right. It's absolutely different than, some of the other 21 players on there. But I just think the added I think that they'll get a contract done. I think it'll be, I don't care if Duane Brown plays a single snap in preseason. I could care less if he practices one day. Don't care, right? So it might be the Friday before the game on Sunday, but I do think that they'll get it done. I do. I just don't think they want to go down that road again.
I lean that direction.
I think you're right. I think that this is one where I think the player actually is going to be able to really get the team on this one. This is a rare scenario. But man, yeah, I don't know. We see John, he trades for Sheldon Richardson on the last year of his deal, doesn't sign him. Trades for Clowney on the last year of his deal, doesn't sign him. Trades for Jamal Adams with 2 years left, doesn't bother to have the contract, runs it 2-3 weeks into training camp. Schneider, he doesn't blink often. So I think you're probably right that it's going to come down to the wire. He's going to sign in 5 minutes now after we have this conversation, but
it's true. Tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow.
Yeah, I just, the short of it, I just think that this is a really worrisome situation.
It is. It's more concerning than the Adams thing for sure. So a couple other bits of news. I know we're a little bit later, but we don't have Evan, so we can stay up a little bit later. So Rashad Penny also is back, and jokes aside, I think that's really good news. I think he has the potential to be a really good part of this offense, and I'm hoping that he gets time this weekend. Another bit of news that might have sneaked by some folks, but Damian Lewis was seen taking snaps at center prior to the game on Saturday. We've all kind of talked about this before. Is there anybody that would be in favor or that feels happy to hear that Damian Lewis is taking snaps at center, and the idea that he might play that like he did for one game last year? No, I see shaking heads around. So, right. I think we all feel like Damian Lewis is a really good guard. The only way I think I could get excited about that is if there's another guard that's out there for them. You're going to harass me, and he did not play well this weekend. Phil Haynes, who, by the way, we did get news that he is okay and was back as well. So he walked off, but is okay. If they had another guard that they felt like was really great and they could upgrade the overall line, then maybe, but it still feels like you're maybe robbing yourself of upside of Damian Lewis. And as much as I'm a Phil Haynes fan, I'm a bigger Damian Lewis fan for sure. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting tidbit. Anything else that I've missed, guys?
We got a couple Patreon questions.
Oh, please. Let's do some Patreon questions.
Okay. So this one isn't a question so much, but Jason said on the emergency pod, I hope equal time is spent on Jamal's contract and Jason Myers' missed field goal. So we have about 15 minutes of Jason Myers' missed field goal talk to get into. I, for one, thought it was incredibly embarrassing. I can barely stand to be a Seahawks fan after having watched that. I can't imagine how anyone who professes any kind of interest or fandom of Jason Myers could have handled themselves after that.
I have a question for you, Nathan. It's an important one.
Okay.
Which is the worst contract, Jason Myers or Jamal Adams?
Oh, wow. Oh, it's I don't know which is the trollier answer here. Actually,
I know this one's a tough question.
Either way, it's Jason Myers. I think. Yeah, I'm gonna be really honest with you guys. I know, people say I hate everything about the Seahawks. I've been accused of not being a fan, lots of different things. I honest to God root for Jason Myers to miss every kick. And I hope none of them matter. I hope the Seahawks win games by 50 points and it doesn't matter. But yeah, I root against Jason Myers with every kick because it's just fun at this point.
Okay.
I thought you guys
question.
did an amazing job trolling him the other night.
Well, he really
Evan.
opened himself up on that one.
I know, but you guys responded real well.
Okay, a real question here from Professor Crockett. LJ Collier, is he going to move inside full-time to 3-tech? And I think maybe open this one up just a little bit. Like, where does Collier end up? And what do you guys see from him this season with all the pieces they have? Alton Robinson just absolutely balling out. Where does kind of Collier's role shake out? And Brian, you have a grin on your face. So
You said, where do I see him? I'm like, as a free agent in a year or so. Like, I mean, I know there's people that are excited about him inside. I think we got to call it, folks. I think this guy's a bust. He's certain. I don't think he's ever going to be worth the draft pick he was taken with. And I think Jamal Adams has a way better chance of being worth 2 first-round picks and a third than LJ Collier does being worth 1. So, yeah, I think, he'll be inside. He'll play 3-tech. He's definitely better there. He's not a sudden guy. He's not super athletic. And I think he'll make a few plays, but he just doesn't get me excited. I'm pretty disappointed with what I've seen in him.
Jeff, what do you think the chances are that he doesn't make the team? And he made us, I think we all had to eat crow on LJ Collier after his second year. Like, he showed up, he looked like a pro. He didn't look like he didn't belong, right? Mm-hmm. But I think, if you look at the depth of the line for this team, do you think that there's a chance he doesn't make it?
Probably not. I think they have a specific role where he's sort of the big end in base packages and he plays the traditional 5 technique. And they don't really have a ton of guys who can do that. Kemdiche has been hurt with a groin thing since he seemed to have hurt it when he was ahead of Collier. So I think they just need his body type. And he did take a step forward from the 0 he was in year 1. He still does not have much of a ceiling. As Brian said, I don't think he'll ever come close to living up to that first-round pick status. But I think just from rotational bodies, they need him around to play that role. So I think he does make the team.
Okay, we got 2 questions about the league at large. Jason A asked how we felt watching other NFC West teams, and Braxton asked about our opinions about the rookie QBs that debuted, who was the best. I watched 0 preseason games that weren't the Seahawks. I don't know if I'm alone in that. Dayna, I think you have to watch some of the other teams. I don't know if that includes preseason. So I'll throw this one to you if you have any comments on it.
I did watch some of the other games. I didn't watch full games. I'll admit that. Right now I just kind of watched a little bit here. I did find it interesting, the reaction that Trey Lance got from the 49ers fans. Like, he threw one very nice 80-yard touchdown and then threw some interceptions and got sacked a lot and looked like a rookie. And I was a little baffled at the overreaction to him, but that's what happens with rookie quarterbacks, right? They get super excited.
That's your Russell Wilson.
Right.
I'm sorry to jump into it, but
yeah,
it drives me crazy. People are like, oh yeah, this is just like Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn. Like, what? Like, it's nothing like anything. It's nothing at all like that. And Russell was like nails that whole preseason. And I don't know, man. Like, everyone thought I was trolling when I tweeted it, but Joe Fan was like, pull off the Band-Aid. And Joe knows I love him. Start Trey Lance, let him grow. And I honestly, I went to look and I'm like, what am I missing? Like, he was 4 of 13 other than that pass, and for like 40 yards and got sacked 4 times. Like, I guess as a Seahawks fan, I'm kind of hoping that maybe they think he's great and that they roll with that, because I would take that.
I think though we can tell by their front office. I think that they let Josh Rosen go today, people, not Jimmy Garoppolo, and I think that there's kind of probably a reason for that. But yeah, everyone gets super excited. Everyone is real excited. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick, Mr. Beautiful locks on his first play. It was beautiful. Cracked me up, not because I want him to fail or want anything bad to happen to him. I just thought it was the perfect welcome to the NFL rookie moment. And if you could do it on the first play, why not? I think that I know that there was people were encouraged by Wilson with the Jets. I think that they thought that they saw some good from him. But for the most part, overall, and Chicago fans are Chicago fans. They just were so excited to see Justin Fields on the field. They didn't even care. But I think it was this. It was what I saw, and I would love to know if you guys agree. There was a shift in preseason, right? Like normally the first game, you see some starters and then they filter out and you do this. The first week of preseason, at least to me, felt like the fourth game that we used to have. Now that we only have 3, it really felt like no one was starting their starters. Everyone was sitting, like all of this stuff was going on. So it was a weird week. And to be honest with you, I didn't watch a ton of it, but I think the rookies look like rookies. And another week in the system, probably by the 3rd preseason game, we actually might have a better idea on how they're doing.
Yeah. And Sean McVay started a trend a couple of years ago where he just stopped playing starters entirely. I think they were the only team that played less people that would play regularly than Seattle did. So I think it was like 38 players who would regularly play for them did not play. And he started that trend. And I think the league is adjusting to that, where McVay determined that the upside of playing players in the preseason isn't worth the chance of them getting injured. So the Rams would be an impossible team to evaluate based on what you saw last week. And their backup quarterback's hurt. So you're looking at 3rd string players and none of these guys. And that's why that Seattle game is so boring. Look at those, some of those defensive tackles were guys who were cut on the guy who started was cut in the 5-man cut. And there was a guy that me and Brian, Miles Adams or something, who was just getting like, he does not look like an NFL player. So the Rams would be an impossible team to evaluate. And I think teams are just going to start to adjust, and preseason is going to be harder for us to make evaluations because you're going to be looking at 3rd string players across the league. And I think this is going to keep happening.
But isn't that the point of preseason? I mean, if we think about it, the point of preseason is evaluation. And they don't have as much time now to have their eyeballs on those 3rd, 4th, 5th stringer players, and they have to have time to do that. So it makes sense. It makes sense that you want to see these guys, either your undrafted free agents or your rookies or what have you, see what they can do in game time scenarios. And so it makes sense that they would hold. They know what Russell can do. They know, how Fred Warner's going to play. So I mean, why put him out there?
I have to jump in with a couple of things. You brought up Miles Adams, who I immediately went to PFF after that game to find out what he had. A tackle grade of 22.9, which sounds horrible. There were 7 Seahawks defenders, 7, who had tackle grades under 30 in that game.
This was maybe the worst game ever.
And one of them, Darrell Taylor, with a tackle grade of 29.3. So I don't know if you guys saw, but like, I think Darrell Taylor looks like a really promising pass rusher. I don't think he's showing me that he's ready to start at linebacker. That's my take from what I've seen so far. And I think it increases the chances that KJ Wright comes back. That was my take after that game. So I hope Darrell Taylor looks more comfortable at linebacker, but that was one of my big takeaways. I think they're forcing something there. I don't think that's a good fit for him. There is a question from Robbie Grayuski in the super chat about whether we think Robert Nkemdiche is going to make the squad. And for folks that didn't hear, he is actually also back this week. That is another bit of good news. Jeff, Nathan, do you guys have any point of view on this? Jeff, I know you've been talking him up.
I think he has to stay healthy. I think if he keeps getting hurt in camp, I don't think he's going to make the team. And I think if he does, him and Collier have a very specific role where they're the 5 technique on early base downs. And then Maybe they shift inside in nickel situations with Rasheem Green. So I think those two would make sense as sort of rotational players to play that role. So again, I think with him, it's just staying healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy throughout camp, he'll probably get cut.
Is this going to be our always compete drama of the preseason where Nkandishe plays for like a couple series and like has a splash play and they cut him for Collier who doesn't shows anything all preseason?
Maximum
Oh,
effort.
I hate that take, Nathan. I hate it because it's possible.
Yeah, because it's too true.
That would really suck. Now, having said that, there haven't been many of those situations that have actually panned out to where we've been really regretful about it. Like, it's not like we really screwed it by not keeping who was the receiver that they cut?
Kason Williams. The one that did get him was Pierre Desir. That was the one that they flubbed.
Well, they've cut some guys, but like I don't know if it was like for that kind of situation you're talking about. The Kason Williams was like he was cut in order to keep some draft pick right? Like who wasn't good. I don't know if Pierre Desir was cut for that reason.
No, but Pierre Desir was one of the fan favorites that got cut. And most of those guys, the Troyman Pope, Pope stuck around a bit. Kason Williams stuck around a bit. But yeah, most of those guys just kind of wash out. Jay Howard, but he, then it's a different situation too because they were just so loaded on the line.
Well,
he actually made the right call.
Will House in the chat's bringing up Glowinski, one of the
that was a whiff.
That was a huge one. All right. Were there any more Patreon questions, Nathan?
That was it.
Okay. Each of you, closing thoughts and looking forward to the upcoming game, because we haven't talked at all about that, on Saturday, 7:00 against the hated Denver Broncos. Dayna.
Wait, where's that game at?
It's in
Seattle.
Lumen Field. The first game at Lumen Field. I don't think I'm gonna go. I don't know.
As long as they don't have to sweat any like possible Jason Myers 65-yard field goals or some stupid shit like that, then I'm good. Keep it out of Mile High.
I mean, Dayna, what do you think we're gonna see in that game?
Okay, well, I just actually released an article today talking about how we're overlooking the Broncos because other than their quarterback position, which is very important, they're actually really loaded in a lot of places. So
they look great against the Vikings.
Oh God, next year when they have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, then I think the Chiefs are in trouble. So anyway, I'm just gonna let that be. But I don't know. I think we're gonna see some of the same. I think did they say that they were gonna have the starters play just a little bit? I think I read that somewhere.
I don't know if I've heard that yet.
I could be wrong. That could have been another team, literally. But I'm really hoping that we see something a little more cohesive, whatever that may be on offense. I think the defense, it wasn't great, but at the same time, they were on the field like 3/4 of the game, right? And so it was good game experience for them. But I'm hoping on offense, we just see something with a little more rhythm, a little better execution, a little more of a plan. And I know they don't want to give a lot away. I understand that. But at the same time, we as fans and as evaluators are like, what is this offense? And if we had to go on last week, this offense is a disaster. So hopefully we'll see something just a little more cohesive. Win or lose, don't care. But I want to see something a little more cohesive.
Nathan, I want to see a cornerback break up a pass like in the first quarter and not give up 10 yards of cushion on a 3rd and 3 play. So that's the biggest thing, honestly. Like that's where my eyes are going to be. I also would love to see a guy like Nkandishe play and look impactful. Like any more disruption on the defensive line can only help the cornerback position. So those are the things I'm going to certainly be looking at. Is there something you think is going to be worth following on Saturday?
Yeah, I'm excited to see our big thighed quarterback again. I can't wait to see John Ursua returning punts again.
Oh God. Oh God, that was so bad, right?
It was
He literally backed away from a punt that was, I mean, anyway, go on. Sorry.
I can't wait to see if Evan tries to do a victory lap on a Jason Myers extra point.
Oh, you know he will.
I do. I'm excited to see if Jordan Brooks can learn how to catch a football. I mean, I don't know. Like,
he's on the thigh squad too, by the way.
Yeah. I'm excited for all our big thigh boys out there. I don't know. I think, but like honestly, I think that's what the attitude I'm taking into this game, because I don't know what else. That game last week was so bad that you have to like. I think you just have to think about the sport differently until they show us that they're gonna like try and that they have NFL players at the bottom of their roster, and but like in Alton Robinson, can that dude go out there and just clown a bunch of second and third stringers again? Like that's a legit positive thing to watch. So, but yeah, I think I mean for me, it's going to be about trying to make it fun, and hopefully it looks like real football.
Jeff, do you think that we're gonna see someone like Rashad Penny play this weekend, or not? I mean, I think it's unlikely we're gonna see a guy like Eskridge play, I would assume. So do you think we'll see Penny play? And then is there anything you're looking for in the games on Saturday?
I do not. I think Penny is working his way back from his injury. Same with Eskridge. I think they're going to have 3 practices. It's probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They probably have Friday off, and the game Saturday. So I don't think they put him out there after just 3 practices. I don't think that's very logical. And what Nathan said, I'm pretty just shook. What I watched last week, the Seahawks third stringers are pretty bad. But for the most part, just tuning into a couple games league-wide, it seems that teams are just operating differently in the preseason. And the Broncos, who I saw a bit of that Vikings game, I know you did too, Brian, they're one of the teams that were actually playing a ton of starters. Like Jerry Jeudy was playing, and their Javonte Williams was playing, and they're in a quarterback competition. And Patrick Surtain was playing. So if they're playing those kind of guys, and Seattle's playing Miles Adams and guys like that, it could be a brutal game. So I'm a little nervous for Saturday because I just think teams are going to take the McVay approach to the preseason. And Seattle was playing some starters on the D-line and on corners, so we'll watch that. But if they're trotting out the same kind of roster and Wood Anderson at tight end and whatever vanilla passing offense where they're trying to keep everything under wraps, where they're not showing you anything. Like their game plan was apparently to let Geno Smith throw like 40 times, which I don't know what the hell that's going to try to prove. I'm pretty shook. So again, I just want to look. All I look for in these games is to see the young players. Like Alton Robinson flashing was notable. I thought Taylor did show a lot as a pass rusher, as a linebacker, and as a front 7 player. Still a lot of questions, but I just want to see who flashes. And overall, I just want the product to be somewhat watchable because, again, I was shook by how bad that game was. Me and Brian going through that stream last week was probably the most painful experience.
Thousands of people watched it, so they got some value out of it. That's we're happy about that. And there was one guy that made it not worth it, but at least I got some pleasure out of watching at the end, and it was Lakeem Williams. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but he was the guy that they signed after they dropped Alden Smith, and we all just thought he was a camp body. And he came at the very end of the game. He made like 2 splash plays in like 4 snaps or 5 snaps, and ended up being one of the highest rated defenders from a PFF perspective. So good for that kid. I mean, at least he did what you're supposed to do. Like if you're out there and you're a 3rd stringer or 4th stringer, like that's your chance. Like make a play. And so I hope it'd be fun. It'd be fun to see a story like that develop. Maybe someone comes out of nowhere and becomes a player that we have to watch. Maybe Cody Barton has another big game. So, all right. I know we're way past.
Real quick though, before we go, Brian, there is a comment in a super chat comment from Robbie Grayuski.
Uh-huh.
Could you do you want to? Should we read that one?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to let you do it. Just
I don't
scroll.
exactly know how to read that comment. Which one are you talking about? The Peyton Manning one?
Yeah.
We better not let horse. What?
The Broncos.
I don't understand it. You're trying to get me to say something, and I don't know if I want to say it because I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
All right.
All
Let's
right.
just think on that one.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. If you haven't already, please click the like on the show. Subscribe, click the bell to get notified when we go live. Who knows when Duane Brown's going to get his contract signed, or when the Seahawks make a move, add a KJ Wright or add someone else. And also join at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Get in now. There are still spots available in the Ring of Honor. Huge. We get together with folks in person and buy dinner for you and have a bunch of fun with the Hawk Blogger crew. And then you get access to the Slack channel. A lot of cool stuff going on in there, a lot of news breaking. And there's even a Mariners Talk channel now, which is a lot of fun. And the Mariners won tonight. They actually held a lead in Texas. So go Mariners. We will be back next week. I do not believe we're going to be doing play-by-play this weekend, but if we are, I'll let you folks know. And in the meantime, check out the podcast we've already got up there and keep an eye out for more content coming soon. Thanks to everybody and have a good night. Go Hawks.